I've started by making a custom PCB. Of course it's based on the official HadesVR wand controller PCB. It's very similar to the original board, as I didn't really change all that much. I've changed some basic stuff like button layout and SMD components instead of the THT. As you can see, I've also changed the power button for a smaller one, replaced the resistors with SMD, and changed the tag switches for a smaller version. I've also got rid of the cell holder, since I want to use it with the LiPo battery. I've also prepared a second version, which is more experimental. In the newer version, I've got rid of the gyroscope pins and placed all of the gyro components directly on the board. First I will assemble the 1.0 version. This way I will check if there are any errors before assembling the new version. Just like always, I cover the whole board using flags. This will make the soldering way easier. And now I cover the button pads with solder. I can't cover all of the solder pads with solder this time, since there are many components with plastic pieces that will easily melt when using hotter station. And now I will solder the gold pin headers. Those are actually super simple to solder. You put them into the holes and solder them from underneath. The SMD components can be safely soldered using the hotter station. This is how it looks so far. I've already placed the gold pin headers, tagged switch buttons and some of the SMD components. Now I need to solder the joystick and tracking LED. I've quickly soldered everything together and it already looks like a proper controller. Now it's time to solder the gyroscope. The gyroscope module have to be soldered as close to the board as possible. This will prevent any tracking issues. After that, it's time to solder the radio module. When you're done soldering the radio module, you can put two double gold pin headers for the battery charging board. And here is the battery charger fully soldered in. I've used the USB-C version, as the micro USB one feels slightly outdated. So now I will solder the power switch. As you can see, my power switch is way smaller than the original one. It also has the slider on the side. So now let's solder the Arduino board. Arduino soldering was pretty easy as well. It was basically the same as the other components. Right now the board is pretty much fully functional. It misses only battery, 3D printed case and grip and trigger button. The original HadesVR design uses a single cell to power whole board. In my version, I will be using this small LiPo battery, which will make the whole device way thinner. As you can see, I've soldered the battery directly to the battery pins. It's pretty much self-explanatory. There are a couple of pointy parts underneath the board, so I will have to use a 3D printed spacer to prevent the battery from exploding. I've made this simple plastic part that should prevent my battery from getting punctured. I will use hot glue on the bottom of this part to attach it directly to my PCB. And from the other side, I will use simple double-sided tape. So now that the battery is installed, I will have to do some wire connections. First I will have to connect this point right here with this pin over there. I've made the wire pretty short so that it won't get in the way later on. You will also have to short those two pins right here. So now when you turn it on, the Arduino lights should light up. The tracking LED doesn't work yet since there is no firmware. Before continuing further, I've connected my board to USB to let it fully charge. Okay, so for this part you will need a second Arduino, in my case Uno, and you will need to connect both boards together. Now connect your Arduino Uno to your PC and select the settings like I did. This way you will be able to write the firmware. Okay, so I've put the firmware onto the board, and now when I power it on, the tracking LED starts blinking. And now it's time to calibrate the board. First, turn off the power. You can remove the joystick cap to make things easier. So now what you need to do is press and hold the middle and left button and turn on the power while still holding the buttons. This will trigger the calibration. It should blink slowly 2 times. When it stops blinking, put your controller on the desk and don't touch it. The calibration is finished when LED turns on again. You have to do this step only once. To properly test the controller, you will need the HadesVR HND board. This is the PCB which you put inside your headset. So now turn on your controller and wait a second for it to connect. As you can see, my controller was discovered right away. You can also see it on the SteamVR panel. It even shows you how much battery you have left. And here you can see that the controller is actually working. I don't have the PS Move cameras set up, so there is only rotation data. Also there are some minor glitches, since I didn't connect the trigger and grip buttons. Okay, so now that I know the controller is working fine, I will assemble the second newer version, which has gyroscope components directly on top of the board. And here is the fully assembled new controller. As you can see, the whole board is super slim. There are also no sharp points on the bottom of the board. Here is the direct comparison between both boards. The board is way less crowded now. And here is the direct comparison to the original HadesVR design. So now let's put the joystick cap back on and do some 3D printing. Okay, so after about 1 hour of printing, I now have all of the parts required for this assembly. I've printed some of the parts in black PLA and used red PLA for contrast. I will also be using a couple of 3x6 tact switches. And let's not forget the 1.4 self-tapping screws. I will also be using a Kenner wire for the tact switch connections. I've started by soldering a couple of short Kenner wires to all of the tact switches. Now I will install the Kenner wires through the holes on the plastic part. This button right here will be used for the trigger. This button is very important in some of the VR games. In Fallout 4, for example, it's used to shoot your gun. And now I will solder the Kenner wires directly to those pins right here. I've made the wires as short as possible to save space in the plastic housing. Next up are the grip buttons. Those are the smaller buttons on both sides that detect your hand gripping stuff in VR. The installation is pretty much the same as with the trigger button. Both buttons should be directly connected to those pins right here. I've connected all of the wires to the solder points, and as you can see, both buttons go to the same spot. At this point I would connect my battery, but it seems I've misplaced it. After connecting all of the wires, carefully flip the controller board into the correct position. If any of the wires are sticking out of the plastic part, simply push them back inside. And now you can install the trigger button. It's this black plastic part right here. The installation is pretty straightforward. You simply push it in until you hear the clicking sound. And now you can install the grip buttons. The grip buttons go directly over the tact switches. Make sure you are being extra careful, since it's very easy to damage the tact switches. Now let's grab the top cover and install the main 3 buttons. The buttons are designed to simply slide inside the plastic housing. With all of the buttons in place, carefully assemble top and bottom parts. Make sure nothing will fall out when doing so. And now secure both pieces with self-tapping screws. The wand controller is pretty much ready now. Actually, it's not quite ready yet. During the filming, I've noticed that I forgot the most important part, that being the ping pong ball for the positional tracking. I've also found my battery. I've prepared a brand new bottom part, which has the ping pong ball mount. It's pretty much the same, so I will install it off screen. As you can see, the bottom part is now replaced with the new one. It also has a red LED for the tracking. I've pushed the LED way down inside for easier ping pong mounting. I will use a regular ping pong ball with hole down in the middle, which will go directly on top of the LED. Of course, I will secure it in place using hot glue. And here is the final result. It finally looks like a proper VR controller. I've connected the controller to my PC and left it alone for about 1 hour to fully charge the battery. When the battery is fully charged, the light should turn blue. As you can see, it's working perfectly fine now. The ping pong ball has a pretty nice solid red color. I've set up all of the cameras and I'm now ready to test out the tracking. As you can see, everything is already calibrated. You can even see the controller movements. So now let's start the SteamVR and see how it works. As you can see, the SteamVR recognized my controller. Tracking is working pretty well, but it's a bit jittery since I have too much light in my room. And that's pretty much all for today. Thanks for watching everyone and hope to see you in the next video. And as always, huge thanks to my Patreons. See you later and goodbye.